23rd, and the time is 5:33. I'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Meyer, would you lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll begin with a roll call, starting from my far right.
Guido Schäfer.
Warren Beckfar.
Ani Sneed.
Eric Meyer.
Jennifer Peterson. Okay, all members are present. I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes 5-0. Dr. Catalani.
Thank you. We have two groups of students to recognize this evening. To begin, I'd ask Mrs. Kavanaugh to introduce a group of students from Cocopah.
Yes, go Cocopah Mustangs. Governing Board President, members of the board, Dr. Catalani, Dr. Peterson, and Sandra, it is absolutely my pleasure to have the following people please stand. Joey Horowitz, Eric Peshkin, and Benjamin Steen. Would their parents also stand? And could we please have Susan Thomas and Steve Salcido, administrators of Cocopah Middle School? And Jan Spiesman, please stand. This is Team Luna Nueva. It takes parents, students, teachers, and administrators to make the huge success of the Cocopah team that won Future City Award at the national competition. This team, absolutely, give them a huge round of applause. This team designed of 7th and 8th graders. They worked in a team of 3, and they were required to create a city of the future. We received a letter that we would like to read as proclamation to the huge success of this Cocopah team. Dear Dr. Catalani, please accept my congratulations for the accomplishments of your Future Cities team from Cocopah Middle School. As one of the VIP judges, not my term, for the final portion of the Arizona competition, and one of the folks who worked for an evening with the team before they left for national competition, I can assure you that this team represented Scottsdale Unified School District very well. Joey Horowitz, Benjamin Stein, and Eric Peshkin, Cocopah students from Jan Spiesman's class, work with engineer mentor Lindsay Cullum and also with engineer mentor Carrie Wilcoxon to create their future city. In the presentation of the city, they were articulate, knowledgeable, and effective at presenting their information. The team worked well together and showed an amazing amount of confidence and skill in the areas of science and engineering. Each student listened carefully to the questions of the judges and provided answers that were sincere, sound, and displayed evidence of higher level thinking. In addition, the boys were extremely courteous and basically delightful. In a time of severe budget challenges and cuts, it is always difficult to provide such meaningful experiences for our young people. I applaud you, Cocopah Middle School and Scottsdale Unified School District, for continuing to provide leadership that allows these experiences for the interested students. Cheryl Lebo, Associate Superintendent, Standards and Assessment, Arizona Department of Education. One more huge round of applause for Cocopah. And now their famous teacher. Would Mrs. Spiesman please come forward?
I'd like to thank the board for inviting us here today. It means a great deal to us to have your support. I'd like to also thank Dr. Lansdowne, because without gifted services, providing us the opportunity to have these wonderful young people dream and support their dreams and work out of the box. I wouldn't be here, and they wouldn't be here, and it's really been a wonderful opportunity to serve you all for the last 17 years. I'd like to also thank our administration, Ms. Thomas and Mr. Salcido. I've been doing Future Cities now for 8 years, and have had several different principals over the years, and I've had just wonderful support from our team this year, and I want to recognize this. Our other this is Joey Horowitz and Ben Steen, and this is and I wanted to acknowledge what an exciting group of people this was. Mrs. Steen and Mr. and Mrs. Peshkin and Mrs. Horowitz also came with us to Washington, D.C., and when Katie said, it takes a family, it takes a team, we had that whole dream team in effect. Lindsay Cullum was our architect mentor for regionals. She was unable to go to D.C., and so Carrie Wilcoxon, who was our engineer from another team, came to support. So to have this support constantly from our community. They were honored by the Society of Military Engineers a few weeks ago, and they've been invited to Luke Air Force Base to go on a tour. And I just got a call before I left from the Society for Fire Engineers because they won that award as well, and they will be honored. I want to tell you a little bit about, I know you were very short on time, so I'm rushing, but the award they won at Nationals, there were 39 regions at the national competition. Our region, we had 125 cities in our region. Some of these regions have 8 cities, 10 cities. So to even represent our region with 125 cities was quite an accomplishment. There were 24 society awards. The award that they won, the national award, was for Best Residential Zone, and it was from the Chinese Institute of Engineers. This institute has been founded in 1917 in New York. By a non-political organization, and it is a group of talented and forward-looking Chinese engineers who graduated from American colleges and worked in the railroads and various industries and are committed to the growth of technology and communication. They have over 10,000 in their membership. They won the award for their Best Residential Zone, which is a strategic placement of residential zones that allow maximum return for the quality of life issues. And so within their city, they had to accommodate for people who had lost their homes to disasters, people, the elderly, the disabled, provide transportation, medical care. And the way this society did it was very unique. It talks about the times that we live in. They posted the descriptions of each of the 39 regions because they have to write a narrative description of their city, their education, transportation, safety, culture, health, and this society posted this on their website. So they had to read all 39 of the narratives. And then the national judge came to the competition, and their membership voted unanimously that Luna Nueva should receive this award. So it's kind of a new way of getting these awards done. So again, thank you so much for your recognition and support. Thank you to the team, our parents, and our faculty. Thank you so much.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Catalani, we are going to continue our celebration of our amazing students in the Scottsdale Unified School District. If Mallory Klinger can stand, come up here with me. This is truly an accomplishment. Mallory is a 5th grade student at Cherokee Elementary School. She placed 2nd at the regional spelling bee on February 19th. She competed against 41 other contestants, which is a wide range of ages in the spelling bee. She will advance to the state spelling bee, which is on March 27th, and it will be held at the PBS studio located at the ASU Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication in downtown Phoenix. We are very proud to have a 5th grade student advancing on to the spelling bee. And just like Ms. Kavanaugh says, we'd like to also thank her parents for all of her support, and Ms. Howard also, her school principal, for making sure the spelling bee occurred at her school. And we just want to say congratulations to you.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you. Okay, now for the superintendent comments.
Just have one. I want to acknowledge and thank Mr. Cliff McKenzie for once again organizing a very fantastic all-city athletic awards banquet. was held last night at Chaparral Suites. We recognized and honored our athletes from our winter sports, and I believe the parents and staff members, and most especially our students that were in attendance, were very appreciative of their recognition. And this banquet truly exists because of Mr. McKenzie's passion to recognize student athletes in Scottsdale Unified. So good job, Cliff. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, I'm looking for an approval of the consent agenda, a motion to approve.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second? All right, I have a motion and a second to approve it as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes 5-0. Next, discussion on the use of tax credits.
We were asked to place this on an agenda. I believe Dr. Peterson has a short presentation, and then we'll entertain discussion based on the questions from the governing board.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Catalani, Mrs. Kavanaugh, Mrs. Como. Our Scottsdale tax credits are similar and the same as all the other public school tax credits in the state of Arizona. They are authorized by ARS 43-1089.01. Basically, they also need to follow the Arizona Department of Revenue Publication 707, which says that an individual may claim a credit for making contributions or paying fees to a public school or support of extracurricular activities or charter education programs. So who can claim them? Any individual. It cannot be a partnership, cannot be an S corporation, cannot be any type of a corporation at all, but an actual individual. Also, trusts and estates are not. We've had several trusts and estates write checks to us, and we've had to return those over the years because we cannot accept them from trusts or estates. It has to be an actual individual taxpayer. What's the maximum dollar? An individual, a single taxpayer, or a head of household can do $200 as a cannot exceed amount, and then a married couple or a joint return cannot exceed $400. The program says that it first and foremost will fund character education. Character education is a program defined in statute 15719, and it says each district can develop its own course of study for each of the grades at a minimum. The character education program must include instruction in the definition and application of at least 6 of the following character traits, and it provides those traits that you must choose from. So when we develop our programs, we have to use that as our guideline if we're going to spend dollars for character education programs. Also, a fee paid for support of extracurricular. That's a fee is a dollar amount paid to a public school for the support of extracurricular activities. Again, these are extracurricular activities. It's things that are after school. It cannot be during the school day unless it is a field trip that's outside the normal classroom. What are extracurricular? It goes in to define those. Again, it gives quite a list of items. Also, it can pay for uniforms, for band, varsity athletics, use of laboratory equipment. It does go in to say. So during the classroom, if you have fees for those types of things, it can cover the fees also. Believe it or not, it can also cover your before-school daycare program. So through our community schools program, if you have a child in our community schools programs for Kids Club, those fees up to $400 for a family filing jointly can also be deducted as a tax credit fee. Each school must make a report to the Department of Revenue every year. We have to submit the report by February 28th, and that report basically talks about every school and lists the dollars and the expenditures that have taken place in that program. We also have to issue a receipt. So whenever we get a tax credit donation, we do issue receipts for the people to file their taxes every year. And then finally, what does the ARS 43-1089 mean for Scottsdale schools? It says that the site council of the schools that receives contributions that are not designated for a specific purpose shall determine how the contributions are to be used at the school site. What that means, if somebody donates dollars for band or for athletics or another program or a field trip, the site council has no say over those. Those are designated dollars. They have to go to those designated programs. If somebody donates money to the school and it's not designated for anything, then the site council has to approve the expenditure for those types of expenses. So again, if it's something that's designated, athletic fees for athletic purposes, the site council does not have the say over that. They have to go to those types of dedicated expenditures. Field trip use. Every field trip using tax credit money must have documentation stating the educational purpose. We do request this, and we do keep it on file. Our purchase orders make sure that they are also part of the file, and so we track all of our expenditures for any field trips that we use our tax credit dollars for. And here's some important tax credit facts. Tax credit donations are postmarked by December 31st to count for the current year. If somebody sends it on January 1st, it goes into the next year. It cannot be post-dated. Married filing jointly can claim up to $400. Single can claim to $200. Tax credits can only be used for extracurricular events that are school-sponsored. They require a fee in order to participate. They're limited to enrolled students. So you can't use tax credit on somebody who is not an enrolled student within that school. Tax credits are not refundable, so somebody cannot change their mind later and say, let me have the dollars back. That's an IRS and a state tax issue with the Arizona Revenue Department, because they would be afraid that somebody would donate, take the tax credit in their taxes, and then come back to the school district and ask for the money back, and that wouldn't be acceptable. Tax credit payments cannot be transferred from one school to another, and tax credit donations are for Arizona residents only. Residents from other states cannot claim Arizona public school tax credit dollars. So looking at our current funds, these are our elementary schools. You can see our current balances, and this shows also what they've received in the last year, and then a list of some of the things that they're currently looking to either spend the money on or they will be spending the money on in the future. So they've such things as plays, museums, the Geographic Bee, after-school programs, the Garden Project, assemblies, athletics, botanical garden, educational assemblies, band concert, after-school programs, BizTown. So there's a variety of activities. These are our elementary schools. Looking at our middle schools, again, athletics is a large expenditure. The zoo, and again, going to the zoo has to have some type of an educational component to it. So we require that the educational objectives get submitted along with those requests. The Olympiad, Washington, D.C., music festivals, and finally in our high schools. Athletics, again, a large area. The tutoring, after-school programs, the DECA trip, band camps, fine art competitions, Olympiad, math tutoring. We do have some schools with some significant balances currently, and some of them are saving up for some field trips, and those will be spent out over this next year. Some are working on some plans. We've been talking with all of our school principals, and they are working on plans with their site council to make sure that they spend those dollars wisely, and we move forward. That is the end of the presentation, and I would entertain any discussion.
Thank you, David. What typically is, how does the state feel about having a balance at the end of the school?
Well, you would have a balance. Madam President, members of the board, the state legislature would like to take those monies from us to help balance the budget. I'm only kidding, Dr. Meyer.
No, you're not.
The state recognizes that there are balances because in some cases they plan a trip 2 years out, and students go to raise dollars, and they may have to raise dollars in 2 different tax years to make that happen so they can make it affordable. So they recognize that. Now, if there's considerable balances multiple years in a row, then that would be a concern, and the state would have a concern about that.
With the site council involvement, that's for the undesignated.
Yes, ma'am.
And are our site councils getting training? How to use these? What's not available? The criteria, I guess, is what
Madam President, Board Member Sneed, typically that's something that we can look into. Typically, the principals have that discussion with their site councils as they begin the year. We haven't had a specific site council training. That's something we could consider or send out some additional information on.
We did have one, I thought, a couple of years ago.
We had one a couple years ago, but we didn't have one this past year.
Last year.
Yes.
Excuse me. Last year, parent.
Yes, parent council. We had with parent council, but not. We did not have each individual site council there.
No, I think we did.
On request.
Yeah, David.
And-
every site council was invited.
And then upon request, when they do request, we're there to help them. But typically, the principals understand the process, and they share that with their site councils.
Okay, and this was the first time I recognized that it said varsity athletics. Is there a reason why that was singled out, and would that then apply to our elementary school?
Well, no, varsity athletics, typically that's because of the fee cost involved with the physicals and those types of things that they can write off. But it's athletics across the board that's extracurricular. So in our middle schools, where we have our middle school program that's intramural, that can also be written off as an extracurricular activity.
Katie Kavanaugh, I think she wanted to interject.
I just wanted to clarify, the past couple of years, with partnership with Parent Council, we've invited all site councils and principals, and they have come, and we've, in this room, had a large number of people with a training. Now that there's new information, we certainly would want to repeat that, but we've done that consistently for the past couple of years.
Mr. Schaefer.
I was the one who raised that issue. A couple of concerns that I have. Number one, I know that the state legislators are, they're trying to get as much money as possible out of whatever is available. I'm afraid that we are going to lose that money if we are constantly asking for tax credits and are not spending them as we should. And so the concern that I have is we have, if I'm not mistaken, about $2.1 million spread over all of the schools in Scottsdale on tax credits. Question that I have is that money, is that in a trust fund? Is it in our regular funding mechanism, or where does the money reside? Number one. Number two, what are the chances, in your opinion, that the legislature is going to look at that very carefully? Okay, and then thirdly, I have another point, and that is, as budget cuts will take place over the next months, can we use that money creatively by allowing each school to abbreviate certain instructional time and instead use that money for maybe science labs, for any additional, for extracurricular activities, so that we are not going to be losing any monies? So do you have all three? Okay.
Yes. Madam President, Board Member Schaefer, first and foremost, those accounts are separate, specific designated accounts.
Okay.
They have their own funds. They're controlled separately through auxiliary funds, so they're not state-controlled dollars. That transfer never happens to the state or to the county treasurer. It stays in a designated bank account.
Good. Okay.
So that's good. There's always a possibility that the legislature could change the law. I think there would be some tax implications if they were to do that. So that would be something that probably would be challenged in court because people are dedicating those dollars for specific purposes, and then for the state to come in and take them. The state tried to do that this past year in some other restricted dollar accounts, not for schools but other agencies. They were challenged in court and lost and had to give dollars back. So I think that's probably highly unlikely that would occur. And then finally, looking at schools to restructure their programs, we are compelled to have a certain number of instructional minutes. We have to do that within the instructional day. Now, lab fees, we could look at those, but again, they have to be reasonable and they have to be for specific items. We can't go outside the law, so we couldn't cut off instruction and then pay for additional instruction. You can pay for tutoring, because tutoring is above and beyond additional instruction.
Okay. I would like us to explore the opportunities that we have in providing additional instructional time for kids using the tax credits that cannot be, that will not be spent over the next foreseeable period. I'm just very concerned that our legislators are looking at that and are siphoning off the funds that we have accumulated. Thank you.
Dr. Meyer.
There is a bill moving through the House that would expand what those dollars can be spent on in technology and classroom supplies, so that may help with the soft capital cuts that we're going to take as a district. And no one as yet has talked about sweeping those funds, so it's not in this year's budget, so I would imagine that that won't change going in. Thirdly, I voted against all the things where we swept funds and then had to give money back because...
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you for that. Mrs. Beckbar.
Thank you. You know, some of the things that you'll probably be talking about later have to do with some maybe elementary string band type programs. So I think what Mr. Schaefer may have been trying to get at is if we look at ways that we could perhaps offer programs on an extracurricular basis, but maybe allow all kids to do something extracurricular at the end of the regular minutes and have that funded through tax dollars, or the tax credit dollars. That's, I think, what you were trying to get at, is something a little more on the creative side, but allows us to use this other source of funds. Now, the problem is that it's not an equitable distribution of funds across our district. So we have some schools that get quite a few tax credit dollars and other schools that get very few tax credit dollars. So that's the problem that I think we then have to deal with, is how do we maintain equity of programs, accessibility across the district if we did something like that.
And I think the other challenge would be the inconsistency from year to year. I mean, it's not a given that you'll get the exact same amount of tax dollars every year, but I like the creativity aspect of it. I mean, maybe there are some opportunities down the line. Bonnie, Mrs. Sneed.
Having sat on 3 different site councils, my understanding is that the district really doesn't have any say in this, so that it's individual schools that by law, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but by law, the individual schools, the site councils are the ones that have determination. So I don't think as a board we can, definitely encourage people, but and get the word out there. But as a board, I don't think we can vote on anything like that or make that determination. One thing I would like to see is if we could possibly post some undesignated. Now, I think the designated and undesignated amounts sometimes really look skewed because it looks like our high schools get so much, but they're also the ones that have more designated funds for specific activities. I would like to see a list with our undesignated funds put on the website so that people who may not have a particular affiliation or who may not have a particular student that they would want to donate to would be able to see which schools are most in need.
David, what does happen, because I know people can donate through our website, where do those dollars go?
Madam President, every donation has a school site attached to it.
Okay.
So they do a school. We have had occasions where somebody has just sent us a check and not put anything on there, and typically we will divide that among our schools that are our most have most need.
All right. Any further discussion? Thank you. Okay, next up, ASBA time again. We need to decide what message we want to send them and who wants to be the delegate. Bonnie. Anybody want to go first? Yeah, message first, please. I know what my message would be, but. Ms. Beckvar?
Well, one concern that I'm hearing down at the state legislature is that there's maybe a move afoot to require that certain contracts, like for superintendents or administrators, have to contain like 20% of their salary is a bonus-based. My experience with that in the past has been, especially at the superintendent level, politically it's next to impossible for superintendents to ever take that money. So essentially you're saying you're cutting, you're either structuring it and putting this sort of fake bonus out there that you know you're never going to pay, or you end up giving your administrators a 20% pay cut. So I think that we might want to address that particular issue since we've had some.
So it's like a pay for performance is what they're suggesting,
Right.
I guess, what you're saying? Okay.
And while I'm not object to having some kind of bonus, I think by them specifying a percentage is, one, eliminating local control, and two, is basically forcing us into either cutting pays or getting accused of having exorbitant salaries.
I mean, I have to feel like I wouldn't think we would want them putting any specifications on our contracts. I mean, regardless whether administrators are down the line. So, yeah, I think that's a very good one if everybody else.
I did provide you with copies of this assembly in June is actually to the time when the boards across the state of Arizona give direction to the Arizona School Boards Association for how they should lobby for the coming year. And so this is the actual delegate votes the positions that the association will take. So I think it is important that we have representation there. Unfortunately, I mean, I've done it a few years, but I have a conference that's always scheduled that same weekend, and I'm not available to attend this year.
Now, do they advocate also for education-friendly legislators?
Actually, because they're a 501c3, they're not allowed to take a position on individuals. They can take positions on referendums. So, for instance, they've taken a position to support Prop 100, which is the 1-cent sales tax, but because of the way they are structured, same as our PTAs and PTOs are in a similar position where they can't take a position on candidates.
Okay. That would be the one thing I would like for them to do. Get education-friendly legislators in there. Hey, any other? Oh, Mrs. Sneed.
I do believe I'll be in town, and I did enjoy it last
You're a
year,
good
so I
person.
will do it again.
Hey, all right.
Well,
So
If I am, if the board feels like I should do that, yeah.
Well, I will make a motion.
wait, we need a delegate also. I hate to do this.
No, I'm making a motion to.
But, I mean, we need an alternate,
alternate.
too. Sorry. Oh, wow.
I
These are really
move
good people.
that we appoint Mrs. Sneed as our delegate and Mr. Schaefer as our alternate for the delegate assembly on June 26, 2010, for
Okay.
the Arizona School Boards Association.
All right. Would you like to second that, or?
Second.
Okay. We have Mrs. Sneed as our delegate and Mr. Schaefer as the alternate to the ASBA, whatever, June.
Delegate
Sorry.
assembly.
Yes, assembly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, no one's opposed. And then what message do we want to send them? Just stay out of our hair, don't do contracts, but,
Well,
I mean, the list is endless. What?
yes, it is. Well, I agree with most of the political agenda, but mostly just to allow local control and to try not to impose any more unfunded mandates.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? I think that's well said.
So that wouldn't be any specific proposal that we'd be moving forward as a board.
To say?
So that's, I mean, that's not, that's saying you're basically supporting what's already there, because that's already in here, that they're going to support local control.
Right. I mean, at this point, I think it's hard to layer on any more to everything they're supporting. And, you know, the problems are very extensive right now. So, okay. I don't think we need action on that, obviously. Or do we?
The only thing is to give direction to Mrs. Sneed and Mr. Schaefer on what position you want them to represent for the board. If there's anything different from, that's the reason it's on the agenda, is so that we can give direction if we want to take a position that might be a little different than what's in here, or if we have a particular proposal that we would like them to move forward. There's actually a process where, you know, a board can make a proposal for something that's not specifically on here. It then goes through a process and it gets brought to the delegate assembly for a vote.
I would be perfectly happy to trust their judgment, to be honest with you. But Mrs. Sneed?
Well, for example, last year, one of the additional policies that was brought forward for discussion, it got rather heated actually, was whether or not board members should be required to have fingerprint clearance, which it shocked me that that would be an issue, but it was just about 50-50. So that was just to give you an example of some of the other things that may not be in here. If I could have direction, really that was the only one that I think that was rather divisive. But if I could have further action on that particular issue, I guess it comes up every year. So if you can give me some guidance there, I would appreciate it.
Surely that's not the hottest topic there, is it?
Not the hottest, but the most
contentious.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah.
Well,
the most divisive.
Yeah, some of the things in the past have been, whether or not to change the exit age from high school from 16 to, say, 18. Sometimes that comes up where they're looking to see, because that's a piece of legislation that is often brought forward. Other issues have to deal with whether or not to require training for board members, whether that should be a mandatory certain number of training hours that board members should be required to have to retain their seats. If there's a proposal out there for what the position would be for the state trust land proposal, that was one of the things that they took a position on. So it is, there are things that come up, and the delegate does sometimes have to make a choice on something that our board may not have discussed.
Fingerprint thing, so I'm assuming you really want... Have any thoughts on that?
Well, let me share with you the reason that ASBA was against it. They did not support it, and it ended up not being supported last year, but I'm sure it'll come up again. The feeling was that we shouldn't have any more restrictions placed upon school board members than any other elected official. So that was the major reason why most of the people voted against it.
I think that's a fair position for us to take, although I would probably agree that our state legislators could use a little training.
Yeah, the training, yeah, maybe the fingerprinting, right.
So, I think then the direction I would give or would propose is that, we keep local control as much as possible, and that we don't impose additional requirements, although they did pass one, because you can't have a member of your same household now serve on a board together. Well, that the Roosevelt Elementary School District rule, because they had a mother and a son, although I think, but that's on a 5-member board. If you're on a 3-member board, you're allowed to be, have a spouse or, husband and wife, or a son and a child and a parent serving on the same board. So there's some very peculiar rules that are out there.
I know these are really important issues, so I don't mean to minimize them, but with budget cuts we've got coming, it's like really...
I realize that.
Okay.
So I think, if she just uses those as guidance to keep the local control and to not impose additional requirements on board members that's not being imposed on other elected officials, then that would probably help her make that decision.
Right. I'm 100% good with that. Anybody else? All right. Thank you for volunteering, Bonnie and Dieter. Okay. Next up, discussion on preliminary budget.
This evening, Dr. Peterson will make a presentation on how we're going to respond to the inability of the state of Arizona to appropriately and adequately fund public education for the children of our state. As Dr. Peterson begins, this presentation is leading up to the adoption of the budget in June, and I want to personally thank Dr. Peterson for his very open and thorough examination of expenditures in the district, the involvement of administration, faculty, staff, and parents to get to this point in our presentation this evening. We want your feedback, your questions. Most importantly, we want to hear from you on any item that he presents that you at this point would be unable to support. Because if you're unable to support it, we need to, by our next governing board meeting, come back to you with another idea that replaces whatever dollar amount is attached to that particular recommendation. So there's only one item this evening that we will ask if you're willing to actually adopt for next year, and that's the 2 bell schedule start time. Dr. Peterson will explain that to you. We certainly can live with you not taking action on that this evening, but if you don't take action on that this evening, we'll come back to you in April to ask you to do that. The reason for asking for approval of that one item this evening is to give moms and dads plenty of notice in preparation of the next school year for the change in start times. But I want to thank, again, Dr. Peterson for his outstanding effort in preparing this very unpleasant document. Again, 100% caused by the inability of this state to appropriately fund schooling. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Dr. Catalani. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Catalani, Mrs. Kavanaugh, Mrs. Como, and our audience, thank you for being here this evening. Unfortunately, this is not the presentation I would like to be giving. I would like to be able to stand up here and say that we have adequate dollars to provide adequate compensation to all of our employees, but that is not the case. What I'm going to be sharing with you this evening is a set of work documents that truly are still a work in progress. As Dr. Catalani said, we will be coming to you actually in June for the final bond or the final budget approval. But this document has stood the test of probably about 20 revisions. We have had multiple meetings with a large group of people across the district in many arenas, and we will continue to meet with individuals and take input. We do have on our website, we do have a place for people to submit suggestions. We have received those, and we have analyzed every single one of those suggestions. Giving a little bit of where we have been, looking back a little bit. Back last year, fiscal year 2009, during the middle of the year, the legislature decreased our funding at Scottsdale School District by $3.3 million. In addition, building renewal was lost last year. It was not funded. Building renewal has not been funded for quite a few years, but I just went back the last 2 years, and we lost $6.7 million in building renewal funding. This current year, the legislature was not able to fund the utilities formula. This desegregation funding was frozen at the last year's level. We had a mid-year funding reduction of $4.8 million, and again, building renewal was not funded. Because building renewal has not been funded, we have had some major impacts in our facilities that I'll talk about in a little bit. All of these funding losses do not include any budget impacts for insurance increases or state retirement or any of those over the last several years. This is solely due to reduced funding from the state of Arizona. What have we done in order to combat this? Our priority, first and foremost, has always been to keep the cuts away from the classroom. We have worked very hard, and we continue to work hard to make sure that anything we do has a minimal impact into the classroom. We have consolidated schools. I commend you for your work last year in having that occur. Actually, Scottsdale has been a model across the state that other districts are looking at because they are realizing this year they have to consolidate schools, and they are looking at what we did last year as a model to allow that to happen. We've deferred major maintenance, and we have some buildings that are in some rough shape, and we're going to continue to keep those buildings operating as well as we can. But unfortunately, we are going to have to look at a bond in order to rebuild some of our buildings because we are not getting money in any other way to make those projects occur. And then most importantly, in keeping all the cuts away from the classroom as much as possible, we have reduced district-level administrative staff 20% over the last 2 years. So we have done everything we can to try to keep these cuts from the classroom, and it has impacted our administrative levels. But we felt that was important as we moved forward. It's also important that everyone realizes we generate revenue as a district. All the revenue that we generate allows us to minimize the expenditures to the M&O budget. We have rental income from our buildings and buses. We fund 3 positions out of that income. We contributed $145,000 back to schools directly for schools to put in their accounts for them to spend on supplies and other expenses at the schools. We had accumulated savings of $3 million in our rental account that we had to spend this year. We had to put a new roof on a high school. It cost us $3 million. We had no building renewal money. We had no bond money. We had no capital money. This was the only dollars available to put a new roof on that high school, and we had to do that. We also paid $70,000 in utility costs. During our rentals, we charge for utility fees, and those fees go directly into the utility bills, so we pass those on. We do not keep that money. Our community schools, I'm very proud to say, employs 95 individuals. That is a wonderful opportunity to give back to our community and also to provide employment. They also contributed $600,000 to the district indirect account on top of everything else they did this past year. And Nutritional Services employs 155 staff. Again, this is outside the M&O budget. They paid $539,000 for new equipment. This was equipment that we did not have to fund with capital dollars or capital override dollars or anything else. It was directly for the kitchen operations. And they also contributed $565,000 to the district indirect. So between our programs, we contributed over $1.2 million of direct cash on top of all these additional jobs to keep our district running outside of the M&O budget. The revenue that we've generated with our indirect costs, we employ 13.4 FTE. Again, these are positions that are not funded in the M&O budget, which allows money to be put back into the classroom. We saved $661,000 in those positions. That's equivalent to 12 teachers that we're able to put back in our classrooms with the dollars that we generate. Also, we paid for $438,000 in custodial costs. Those were costs that would have normally come out of our M&O budget. So again, that's almost 9 teaching positions. So between the two, over 20 teaching positions we are able to put into our classrooms by raising revenues outside of our operations from the M&O budget. What's happening with insurance? The national trend for this current year is up 9%. Our Blue Cross Blue Shield 80/20 plan has a loss ratio currently of 102%. That means for every dollar that we pay the insurance company, they are paying out $1.02. They're losing money on us currently. They like to see an 85% loss ratio. They like to be able to keep 15 cents of every dollar that is paid to them. I am proud to say that our health savings accounts, our high deductible accounts, have a loss ratio of 49 and 38%. So they're doing very, very well. Our goal is to bring more folks over to our health savings accounts this coming year. As I met with Blue Cross Blue Shield, talking about our premium increases for fiscal year 11, they gave me an initial increase of 26.7%. That's $3 million. We do not have $3 million to pay for health care. I've shopped around. I've talked to a lot of trusts. I've talked to a lot of individuals, a lot of districts. I've talked to cities and municipalities. And we are taking a recommendation. We will be meeting one last time with the insurance committee. The insurance committee has done a lot of work with us on this. But we will be looking at moving over to United Healthcare with a self-insurance plan through the Valley Schools Trust. It'll be a 0% increase. That we will have to change our pharmacy deductible to $100, and we'll have to go from a $500 plan to a $750 plan for the deductible. But that'll still keep an 80/20 plan. That's pretty incredible that we can do that and save $3 million for the district. But we've worked very hard for that. The legislature has approved a budget in March, and we're thankful for that. We're not thankful for the dollars because we hope there would be more, but what's most important is we can finally make some decisions. In the last several years, it has been June and July before a budget has been passed, which has impacted a lot of people because we didn't know what we would have for dollars. At least now we're able to plan accordingly, and we're going to be doing that. I met with all principals at each level, along with Dr. Catalani, and we developed 5, 10, and 15% scenarios based on budget reductions. We met with all the departments and developed 5, 10, and 15% scenarios. We met with the district budget committee. We've still been meeting. District budget committee includes parents, it includes teachers, it includes administrators, it includes principals, and we've worked very, very hard to come up with the cuts and the recommendations that I'm going to be bringing forth. I've met with the Certified Association. I will be meeting with groups as requested. This past week, Dr. Sakos and I met with all of the school nurses and their representatives, and we've talked about the impacts, and we will be meeting with additional groups as a request. The final budget for next year would be, we were going to request that we will bring that to you on the 15th of June for adoption. The fifth special session of the legislature did pass a budget for us. Our ADM is up 26.492, almost 27 students, so we're very happy because our surrounding districts have lost anywhere from several hundred to over 1,000 students. So we feel blessed that we have at least an increase, even though it's small. Our base level funding increase is zero. It'll be the same base level funding as last year, $3,267. I think that's an important figure to people to realize, that most states, their base level funding is between $6,000 and $9,000. We get $3,200. If you work that out, it's less than $3 an hour for a student going to school. I think we do an amazing job in Scottsdale educating our children for less than $3 an hour. Transportation funding will be increased by 1.2%. In Prop 301, it's said in the language there, and there's a little bit of dispute, that we would get base level and transportation level funding. Some people interpret that as base level or. This year, for the first time, the legislature did interpret that as an or. I can tell you that there are some groups that are looking to challenge that. But again, we don't have the dollars. There's not a whole lot that the state's going to be able to do. Another very important and a huge impact to our district, the elimination of the full-day kindergarten. The Group B weight has been eliminated, which means the state will not be funding full-day kindergarten this coming year. There's no utility funding formula. The DSEG budget is capped at the 209 level, but career ladder funding will proceed this year at 5%. As you know, there is a lawsuit currently pending. It has been appealed by the state of Arizona, and the judge has allowed, based on the appeal, to stay and allow the career ladder funding to stay in place for this coming year at this point. And that allows career ladder funding at 5% for those individuals that qualify for a career ladder. There is a caveat that no one can additionally be added to career ladder. If you're in, you're in, but you cannot bring new members on board at this point. Looking at our budget outlook, our projected budget for this coming year is $156.5 million. Our last year's budget revenue at revision number 3 was $163.3 million. That's a funding reduction of $6.7 million. Now, people ask, well, how can that be if, in fact, the base level funding stayed the same? It's because all-day kindergarten, first and foremost, was eliminated. That was $4.5 million to our school district. And then, as I had talked about previously in some presentations, we no longer have the revenue carryover that we've had in previous years. So our actual budget balance carry forward has been reduced. So that impacts directly our bottom line. So our funding reduction is $6.7 million. Soft capital that's being reduced to 78%, that's 4.4. Prop 301 funding, again, this isn't the legislature doing this. This is the sales tax that's paying for Prop 301 and the state land trust. That's $5.6 million reduction from what we would receive previously. And a large part of that is also the negative balance makeup that is going to be taking place. So next year, we expect Prop 301 to be up again significantly because we will have used this year to make up the negative balance. The Site Improvement Fund or Indian Gaming, casino revenues, contrary to what people believe, when the economy's bad, everyone goes gambling. That's not occurring. Casino revenues are down. So we are seeing a reduction there. Structured English Immersion, this is the ELL. And it's interesting, the State Department of Ed came back this year and said because you receive DSEG dollars, they will not fund the ELL. So we will have to pay for those opportunities with DSEG dollars. Title I stimulus, we still have a little bit of money coming in from that, which is good, so it's a small impact for this coming year. Next year it will be larger. And then the special ed stimulus. We have spent our special ed stimulus dollars this past year providing services. We will have to continue providing services to the children that qualify. So we have to make up those differences and what that costs. So looking at our funding reductions, it's $19.5 million to the district. But there's more. Budget impacts. An unintended consequence of having a RIF is that we have to pay unemployment costs. We've never had to budget in the last couple years for a large unemployment cost because we've been able to bring our employees back. This year, we are going to have to because unlike past years where there was hope, because we do have a budget now in March, we know what our dollars are going to be. We can plan for that. We have to pay unemployment costs for the people that are going to be reduced in force. Property and casualty insurance is impacted. We've paid for that out of the self-insurance trust. The self-insurance trust has been paid down to the point that we have to put some dollars back into it to pay for that property and casualty insurance. And then state retirement. State retirement is going to go up by 0.45% this coming year. That means that every employee has to pay an additional 0.45% of their salary, and I have to match it as an employer. So it's going to cost us $500,000 to match the state employment contribution that will increase this coming year. And then finally, the utility prepay. We've been able to prepay our utilities, get credit. SRP had a plan where we could do the sure pay, and we would get a 1% credit for that. Those are going away. The utilities are also hurting, and so they're trying to save dollars in their programs. So that will impact us between our prepays. So that means our budget impacts outside of funding is $2.9, almost $3 million. Putting those together, we start out having to make up $22.5 million as we move into this coming year. Overall, looking at the percentage of our employees, our certified employees make up 61% of all FTE. Classified make up 32%. Our certified admin make up 5%, and our classified admin make up 2%. I think it's important that 7% classified admin that I show there, over the past several years, we've reduced that by 20%. So the smallest amount has taken the largest hit, and we've kept those hits away from the classrooms as much as possible. Looking at a percent of salaries, our certified employees take almost 70% of all salaries paid go to our certified staff. That's our mission, to educate children, but we pay our large proportion there. Our classified staff make up 20%, and then our certified and classified admin make up 11% of all salaries that are paid in the district. Looking at how we're going to make up the $22.5 million. Again, these are some recommendations that I'm bringing forth to you. At the end, if there's things that we need to change, we will look to change them, but we will have to find dollars to make that happen. First and foremost, the legislature said this year that the 22% soft capital that they're giving us, we can use that for M&O expenses. So we will be taking that off to offset our budget reduction. That means we will have zero soft capital money for this coming year. That's $1.2 million. The Prop 301 funding, the $5.6 million from the sales tax and the state land trust, that comes right off the top. That is dedicated to teacher salaries. We have been working with our SEA through Meet and Confer, and we appreciate their efforts, that we're looking to try to do a one-year bridge with the SIP payments to make up the base salary for all of our teachers so we can keep our teachers' base salary whole. Again, that's a plan that we'll have to bring back for approval. We'll need 70% approval of our teachers to allow that to occur, but we feel that's a good plan to keep our teachers whole this coming year. Dropout prevention, $221,000 is being eliminated. Because of that, we will have to reduce 5 social workers in the district. SEI and Title I reductions, that's a straight reduction to the programs of $420,000 of funding. The Indian Gaming program reductions of $50,000. And then the soft capital that the legislature did not provide to us, $4.4 million needs to come off the top. That means we still have $10.4 million to make up moving forward. In trying to do that, our K-3 override, our language in our K-3 override said very specifically that if the state does not fund all-day kindergarten, that we first and foremost have to use those dollars to fund all-day kindergarten. We will be funding all-day kindergarten with our K-3 override money this coming year. We will have all-day kindergarten in Scottsdale. But in so doing, we have to reduce the first through third grade teachers that we were funding with our K-3 override money. That was class size reduction. There's 23 FTE. Also, we had positions in the K-3 override as classified. Some were classroom aides, some were noon aides. We're going to have to eliminate those in order to fund all-day K kindergarten. Our elementary APs, our middle school APs, and our high school APs all will substitute 22 days each next year. They will be in the classroom 22 days. That will eliminate subcosts. All TOAs will substitute 30 days next year. They will be designated to a site. That way the sites can work with them directly. We have TOA reductions, one at Copper Ridge. 4 DSEG teachers will be back into the classroom, a Saguaro 0.4 and a gifted 0.9. That still leaves us with $8.6 million to make up. Our elementary principals, our middle school APs, our high school APs, our middle school principals, our classified school secretaries, and it appears we're talking with our high school principals, but we'll be moving all of those administrators to 11-month contracts with 5 days vacation next year. After doing all that, we still have to make up $8.5 million. We are recommending, along with the Time Task Force, and the Time Task Force took on multiple areas to look at this year. Last year, we talked about a 2-bill schedule, and Dr. Catalani committed that that would not go forth last year, that we would take it, we would study it, we would have parents involved with it. The Time Task Force has parents, has teachers, has administrators on it. They've been meeting, and they support a 2-bell schedule from a teaching and learning standpoint. And so I support it because it's a $500,000 savings. I also support it because of a teaching and learning standpoint. Gifted restructuring, we'll be reducing by 3 FTE. We're going to be reducing our custodial cleaning on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're going to be reducing department budgets, eliminating admin pay for performance, eliminating classified pay for performance. We're going to be reducing a 0.5 FTE librarian at every high school. Right now we currently have a 1.5 FTE. That'll go to a 1.0 at every high school. Special ed realignment. Lois has done an incredible job with special ed, looking at her programs, looking at staffing, and she has come forth with some realignments in order to have some significant savings. We're also looking at our special ed ratio for LRC and speech to reduce the contact time and modify that. We're going to be recommending that we close our elementary and middle schools completely from 15 June to 15 July. That will save both costs of utilities and some manpower. Now, we do have some programs that are renting our schools. We have community schools, we have the parks, we have the YMCA, summer school. In those areas, we will only be conditioning the rooms that they need specifically for renting. We will not condition any other buildings on those campuses. The rest of the campuses will be shut down so that we can save some utilities and some staffing there. We are recommending that our SROs will be split with 50-50 with the city of Scottsdale. We will be eliminating the family max for athletic fees, and we'll be having to raise athletic fees by $25 for a total of $150 per sport. Our student services will be realigned, and there will be an administrative reduction. Thank you. Our TOA realignment that we will be doing, one more TOA reduction of an FTE. At that point, we have done everything we can to keep our cuts away from the classrooms as much as possible. We still have to make up $5 million. Looking at that final makeup, we are having to recommend that this next year we raise class sizes by 3 in every grade level. Our kindergarten cap would be 27, first grade would be 30, second and third would be 32, 4th through 6th would be 34, middle school would be 34, and our high school average for staffing would be 34. We would cap our high school science programs at 30. That would save $5.2 million. We're also looking to have the district administration and classified reduced by 5 vacation days. We will be closing October break completely in the district. High school counselors will substitute 22 days. Middle school counselors will substitute 22 days to save on sub costs. And then all district certified, we are recommending, and this is a meet and confer item, we reduce 3 general leave days so they'll have a total of 10 from 13. In order to do that, we will be able to pay for horizontal movement for our certified staff. If not, we will not have dollars to pay for horizontal movement for our certified staff. We will replace elementary school librarians with classified. If we were to do this right away, we would save $415,000. We don't believe that's appropriate. We believe that should be done by attrition. Typically, we have about a 10% turnover each year in our librarians, and so we are budgeting that 10% turnover. Copper Ridge and Cheyenne, we have it as an exception. The reason we have those as exceptions is, first of all, Copper Ridge has over 1,400 students in it. Extremely large school, and we feel that we need to have that position in place. Same thing with Cheyenne. Very large school, being a K-8, our largest other K-8 that we need to look at being able to staff that. We're also then recommending that our nurses be replaced with health aides at our elementary schools and middle schools. If we were to do this right now, that would be a $400,000 savings. Again, we're recommending it's being done by attrition. That way, everybody who currently has a job in our elementary school and middle school library areas and our nurses will still be able to have a job as they so choose. But once they choose to leave or retire, we will replace those positions with classified positions. After all this is done, on a $150 million budget, I will have a contingency of $73,000. I have no room for error. If we stub our toe next year, we will be in trouble. If we have a major breakdown in a campus, we will be in trouble. We have $73,000 to have as a contingency on a $150 million budget. It's not a very big contingency. But we've done everything we can to keep the cuts away from the classroom. Unfortunately, because our teachers make up almost 70% of the salaries paid. At the end, we are going to have to impact them. I don't want to have to do it. I don't want to have to stand here in front of you and make that recommendation, but we have done everything else we can. We've cut administrators 20%. We're trying to minimize the cuts to our teaching staff, but that is going to be the recommendation moving forward. Now, currently, we have about 38 retirees for teachers, and then we have some people on terminating contracts. So our actual RIF will be less than what I've shown here because of those individuals. But again, not everything lines up one for one. So we don't have people retiring that may not line up perfectly qualification-wise who's on the RIF list. So we're going to have to work through that. But we're going to do everything we can to place the people we can place, and that's what we're going to be doing. If, in fact, the 1 cent sales tax does not pass, what I just gave you is best case scenario. What I just gave you was based on the 1 cent sales tax passing. If we lose the election on May 18th, Scottsdale schools will lose an additional $11.4 million in funding. In order to make up another $11.4 million in funding, we will have to eliminate all elementary specials. That's art, music, PE, band, strings, and library. That means our teachers will be having to teach our kids solid all day long. We will eliminate middle school SROs. We'll eliminate 1 custodial position per school. That means our evening custodian that's there to clean, to turn the lights off, to open up for our evening functions will not be there. We will not have support. We'll have to eliminate our high school SROs. We'll have to reduce 1 AP at each high school. We'll have to eliminate the APs at the elementary schools. We'll have to eliminate middle school athletics. And for all intents and purposes, we will eliminate high school athletics because we'll have to go to a true pay-for-play, which is $450 per sport. A lot of our students cannot pay $450 per sport, which means it would not be fair to them if we excluded them. So in all intents and purposes, our high school athletic program would probably have to cease to exist. After doing all of that, we still would have to increase our class size by a total of 6 or 3 more on top of what we're already going to have to do. This is not good news, but this is reality of where we are in the state of Arizona in the Scottsdale School District currently. What I'm bringing forth this evening for you to take action on, hopefully, is the recommendation, and this is a recommendation by consensus of all administrators, that we start our school next year on a 2-bell schedule, high school and middle school at 7:45, and our elementary school at 8:45. Again, we are doing this to plan accordingly, that we can give notice to our parents so our parents can plan. We feel it's important that our public knows and they can plan accordingly. We've also looked at Desert Mountain High School and Mountainside Middle School, and we will have a little bit of a split there on those start times. Because of the traffic congestion, it'll be about a 20-minute differential between those 2 campuses, but that will be it. Everything else will be according to the 7:45 and 8:45 schedule. Madam President, that is my presentation this evening, and I open it up for discussion.
Thank you, David. I just want to clarify something or reiterate before we get started. On the 2-bell schedule, we can either vote tonight, we can determine we want to wait a couple of weeks and vote at our next board meeting, or we need to tell them tonight, no, we're not interested, or if that's the case. Catalani.
I just want to add one thing about the bus schedule. Because we're changing times, we realize that it's important that we provide before and after school programming for any student that would desire it. Therefore, our commitment is that at every middle school and every elementary school there will be a before and after school program based on student and parent desire. And it will be our commitment through community schools that no child will be denied access to a before or after school program due to financial hardships. So we're going to make it easier for our families to adjust to the change in times by having a place to drop their students off or keep their students in after school programming. And our cost is very reasonable thanks to our great community schools program. And again, we have calculated that there will be opportunities for scholarships or whatever we want to call them, that no child will be denied service because we believe this is an important aspect of our responsibility back to the community.
Dr. Meyer.
Well, I guess where do you start with this? You know, my 2 years now, or 2 sessions down at the legislature, we have made the 3 largest cuts to public education in the history of the state. We started with the first one in the first special session last February, and we've continued to decimate our public school system across the state. I mean, we're fortunate that we have supportive parents in our district. We have great teachers. Our administration has done a good job. We've passed every override bond, capital override, and other districts aren't as lucky, and all the kids across our state are going to be harmed adversely, in my mind, by the decisions that we're all being forced to make at school boards across the state, like ours tonight. You know, I just think about where we were 3 years ago, and our middle school and high school teachers are going to be seeing 50 more kids a day in their classrooms because of these cuts. And we're supposed to be preparing them for the workforce and college. And the question is, well, how can we do that? And you know, they are going to be challenging times. I'm hoping that the sales tax will obviously pass so that the cuts won't be as deep as are, you know, suggested here tonight. Hopefully everyone, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about the sales tax as we move forward, but hopefully it will pass, and we will only be forced with the first set of options, which aren't good, but they definitely aren't as dire as the second set. So I just have a couple questions. Actually, I have multiple questions. So on the starting with the bell schedule change, because I think that's the most immediate issue that we face tonight. How was the choice made to start the high school, middle school earlier than the elementary school, given the data on high school and middle school kids needing to start at like 11 o'clock rather than...
Madam President, Board Member Meyer, I'm going to ask Mrs. Kavanaugh to talk about that because she was one of the tri-chairs on the time task force, and she's got great background on that.
Madam President, Dr. Meyer, there was several months of discussions, review of a large number of models of how school districts are starting times. We looked at a great deal of research, including the research that I'm sure you were referring to. We had experts from around our district, including the athletic directors, principals from all levels, teachers from all levels. And the one teaching and learning topic that kept coming back was that we have a large number of high school students who are losing instruction every day based on their last period of the day having to travel to either athletic events, club events, fine arts events. And so the high school administrators, athletic directors, and teachers came asking us to rethink what we look at as far as our structure in the district to benefit those kids. So that was the largest component of teaching and learning that was researched, and by consensus, the Time Task Force did believe that that was an important aspect. A second one was the ability to have better coordination for, quite honestly, our staffs to spend more time together. And the articulation between our middle school and our high school staffs, our counselors, the ability to do our ECAP work, our 4-year planning, that type of thing made it difficult to have such an expansive difference of time when kids were going to school. Those ended up being the 2 largest teaching and learning aspects. And then, of course, the Time Task Force, with all that we are all facing, could not let go of this is 10 teachers. $500,000 is 10 teachers, and we wanted to be able to do that.
And so with high school starting at 7:45, what will happen with 0 hour? So, for instance, marching band.
We would still have 0 hour. Having said that, 0 hour could move to after school. So those details are being looked at, meaning 0 hour, meaning not necessarily at the beginning of the day, but an additional hour where students would be able. But the other large discussion that was very relevant in the Time Task Force was the discussion of online learning and distance learning and how we will be impacted, providing more opportunities for our kids that way as well.
And then as last year we had faced the challenge, or I can't remember, it was last year or 2 years ago, of clubs, teacher time to be able to spend that time with the kids, the inability for us to be able to pay stipends in certain cases. So how will there be a different lunch bell schedule?
No.
Okay, so this is just start time.
Correct.
Okay. Keep on going?
Well,
okay.
Well, wait.
I don't know. Does anybody else have
do we want to
questions
talk about the bell
yeah.
schedule and let's get that hashed out?
I think it
Okay,
makes
and then
more
you'll go
sense
first
to do
next
that.
time.
Yeah, no. we
Okay,
can
who
take
wants to? Ms. Spegvar.
Yeah, and I guess I'm old enough that we did have the 7:45 start time for our high schools since I've been in the district. And we went to the later start time because it was so early and kids were falling asleep in class. So that's, I absolutely agree with the middle school, high school alignment. I think it makes sense to have them on a similar schedule because we do have a lot of middle school students who take classes at the high school, so it allows for some of that to go on. I'm a little concerned about that early start time for that group of students. But, we've done it before. We can do it again, I'm sure. If we're not having any sports, then the sport issue at the end of the day doesn't become an issue. But I think, when you start talking about putting something before 7:45, it gets really early for kids. And, having lived through the teenage years with my children, it's hard to get them up in the morning, and it's hard to get them to bed early enough to actually get up. I did go to school and my high school started at 7:30 in the morning, and I had to take a bus, so I was getting on a bus and leaving for school at 6:45. So
I think it's always going to be hard to get a teenager.
I think
they
it's,
would go at noon would be great with them, so they're never going to get out of bed.
But, it gives then some opportunity to do something after school for those who aren't going off on sports. So I think, we need to rethink, do we really want to start, 0 hours at 6:30 in the morning?
Right. I'm sorry, I probably misled you. 0 hour mean there would be an additional hour, but then the high schools would talk about that being after school or when that would be.
Which gets into some other issues, which is, for marching band, if you're talking about doing it after school in August and September, and that means you're starting it at, 2:15 at the absolute hottest part of the day to be outside, that does become somewhat of an issue, too.
This is 30 minutes earlier than they start now because high school started at 8:15, so I'm guessing the band will be negotiating and talking to us about that.
Okay, so those are my concerns. I guess the only other question I had was for elementary students. This is a big change, and they have more child care issues that they're dealing with, and I just wonder how many parents were actually involved in this process and with this discussion, since we had a bit of an uproar about it right after you started, Dr. Catalani, last year. So I just wanted to, I think it's great that we're going to provide, and that may alleviate some of those concerns for parents if they know they've got something reasonable in terms of a cost of providing that additional care.
I believe the representatives on the Time Task Force who were from the Parent Council as well as outside of the Parent Council representatives did a good job reaching out to the community. Having said that, I'm sure that we need to continue to work with those parents to make sure that they have these opportunities of child care before and after school, and that they would be at every school so that as needed we would provide that care.
Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer.
I can't wait to tell my daughter at 7:45 school is going to start. I cannot wait. Now to the more substantive part of it. I think those are all valid reasons, and I totally support the 2 bell times. The only thing is, I think that we need to inform our parents what we are considering doing, and I believe also that we should let them know what was the rationale for us to do so. Number one, to save $500,000. Number two, to streamline education, and I think we owe them that rationale, and let them know beforehand, before we make a decision or considering making a decision. That's just my opinion, but other than that, I'm totally supportive of this change.
Madam President, if I may, Board Member Schaefer, there is a website that has been up and running all of the months of the Time Task Force, and we do have the rationale that has been discussed in the research. We'll continue to communicate that over the next few weeks and let people know where that rationale is and get that out to more people from that source as well.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm talking about is, for principals to include that in their morning announcements. This is what we are considering doing. So some people don't rely only on websites to get informed. So,
but I just to that point, it would be great if when we post this, then you could click on something next to the $500,000 that said the reasoning. So you would say, A, it saves the $500,000. B, I don't know if we've got tech people, B, we chose to start high school at 7:45 because of athletics in the afternoon, whatever, so that it can be summarized for them, so they don't have to search through another document. The articulation between middle and high school, the number of kids now that are taking, middle school algebra, we're hoping to be at 100% of our kids. So it just makes all of that easier, so that a kid isn't leaving high school, getting back to middle school, missing a whole period, all those things, that just so that they can click on it and see the reasoning, and then they can argue with it, but at least they'll know what our thought process was to get there.
Dr. Catalani.
We are prepared tomorrow to publicize this recommendation and all the aspects of service and programs that go along with it and rationale. I don't know if we're prepared to do exactly what you're describing by tomorrow, but we'll work on it. But we have information ready to go to all of our principals. We're ready to go live on all of our websites with the rationale and the proposal, reminding everybody that my promise was that I pulled it off the table last year because I said it would go to a committee. I did that. We made sure the committee had parent representation. And the double benefit of this is that it also saves $500,000, as well as it's a positive academic teaching and learning change for the district. So, but we do intend to publicize and communicate, and I have the sense that you want to postpone the vote until April. That's fine. We'll bring back to you all of our feedback, and then you can make an informed decision then. So, but we're going to, again, I think what Mrs. Kavanaugh said is most important, that if this comes off the table, another $500,000 has to replace it. And, if we look at the classroom, that's 10 teachers. And we don't want to do that, especially when we think this is a academic benefit for our kids. So, but we will make sure we communicate this in multiple ways.
Mrs. Snead.
Having sat on middle school and high school site councils, this is a yearly issue, especially for the teachers who teach that last class. And when it comes to testing time, they get very frustrated if there are several field trips the kids have to go on, or right in a row, and they feel like they're losing instructional time. They also feel like the students that are in the classroom have to sit through doing it twice in order to make sure that everybody gets the same instruction. And I know the teachers do get frustrated, especially around testing time. And I would have to think that any teacher that teaches academic subject last period of the day would applaud this.
I just want to jump in really quickly. I support doing this, I'll be honest with you. I like the instructional reasons, first and foremost, and of course I like $1,000 savings. It would be my preference that we wait and vote on it the next meeting, because although perhaps it's out here somewhat, I really haven't heard any conversation, I've got to be honest. So I would rather we throw the pebble in the water and let parents really kind of feel their way through. In case someone has a concern, maybe perhaps something we haven't thought of. I don't know what everyone else's feelings are on that. David, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, on this, okay, where you have the two-bell schedule, the savings, you've got two asterisks, and one of them says elementary specials to be uniform. How is that relevant to the two-bell schedule?
Madam President, that's a comment for across the board, but it's relevant that we align, just like we're aligning all of our middle schools programs and our articulation, that our elementary schools become aligned when we do this, so that when we give staffing out, we make sure that the programs are going to be comparable across all of our elementary schools. So it's
So if one has strings, everybody
all
has
across
strings.
the board. So we want to align our programs, both our middle schools, our high schools, and our elementary schools.
Okay, and then my only other question, you had said with Desert Mountain and Mountainside, because they're unique, because they share the parking lot, there'll be a 20-minute difference? So what does
Yes,
that mean?
ma'am.
One will start at 7:45, one at 8:05?
One may start at 7:45, one 8:05, or 7:40 and 8 o'clock. But that would be up to those schools working that out. I would imagine the high school probably would start first. The students driving their cars and things would be in there, but we would work that out with the two principals and the
then
site councils.
The end of the day, though, obviously things aren't uniform or aren't
Well,
consistent.
the middle schools has a little bit of a difference,
Right.
but right now what's important, and I apologize, I should have mentioned it, there is a bill working through the legislature and appears to have pretty good support that will change the middle school hours to 1,000 hours for the year. So that would help us adjust the middle school schedule to become more in line with the high school schedule.
So then literally you could do this at the end of the day as well then?
That would be our goal, to look at those.
Mrs. Beckfar.
I was just going to ask if you would maybe enumerate what those teaching and learning advantages are of the two-bell schedule when you go out with this, so that it's really clear. Because, this is a budget discussion, but, if you're trying to sell this, that there is a positive teaching and learning thing, then I think we should be including that as part of the rationale for why we're doing it. It's not just for the money that we're going to save.
It sounds like the task force wanted to do this, and then Yahoo, it saves money on top of it all. Okay.
Right, and our communications and even the initial communications starting tomorrow include both the academic benefits and the savings and the guarantee of service before and after school programming.
Yeah, and the board had brought this up to look at, can we save money? I mean, this was a couple of years ago. We had talked about whether or not we could have savings if we changed our bell schedules around when we were doing budget cuts in prior years. This is, I think, all but 1 year. This is my 8th budget that I've worked on this board. All but 1 year we've been making cuts, which is pretty discouraging for your board service, is that, every year it's not what can we do to make things better, it's how can we, plug, which finger can we put in the dam to try to keep it from breaking. And that's sort of been the story of education funding in Arizona. So I hope people start looking at how, what decisions they can make to improve the state of educational funding in the state of Arizona. And it's really up to all of us. If we're going to sit here and take it every year, then we're going to get what we are getting. And, we have an opportunity in May to let our voice be heard that says, we're not going to let you cut any more. We also have opportunities in August to decide who's going to be running and who's going to support education going forward in the future.
Okay, so thank you. Back to this. First, if anybody is adamantly opposed to this, please speak now. Secondly, do you all want to vote on this tonight, or would you rather postpone it till our next meeting to let parents have a or the community, or whomever, to have a minute to think about this. I could go either way. It's whatever the board's pleasure.
You know, since we didn't specifically list this as an item on our agenda that we're going to change the bell schedule, my preference would be to allow the community and our principals to send the information out to their communities and bring it back at our next meeting.
Possible action. We didn't specify this.
Exactly.
That's fine. I'm fine with waiting. I mean, that would honestly be my preference, but I'll do what the board wants. How about everyone else?
Same with Karn.
Okay.
Well, if we aren't going to do this, I want to know the consequences of waiting a month, other than parents will have less than a month to make a decision.
Wait, though, but what I asked, if anybody's opposed to this, speak up. So if
you mean opposed to the...
just the bell schedule is
Okay.
the only thing we're talking about. And if we're not hearing any opposition, do we want to vote tonight, or do we just want to wait 3 weeks just to give our parents a little opportunity to wrap their arms around this?
I just think there needs to be an understanding that if we don't do this, we have to find another $500,000, and when you look at what we've done and what we're going to have to do, I mean, you have to look to the next list and say, okay, well then we have to either get rid of the stuff, something for $500,000 on the list when the sales tax doesn't pass. So that would be, for instance, eliminating all our high school SROs or reducing REP positions. So,
Right.
there's the way we do things down at the legislature is we wait till late at night and vote on things and then don't answer our emails. But
I don't think we're recommending that.
No, I'm not either. So I'm fine with waiting, but I think there needs to be an understanding that, in my mind, I telling my kids they're going to be getting up at 6:30 to go to school is not going to be pretty, but I'd rather have safe campuses. I'd rather have those APs on the campus when they get there. So right now, I'm not willing to trade any of these other things, and it would take an awful lot of pressure from parents or some.
And I'm not, I'm not looking to change my mind. All I'm saying is that because we didn't specifically put it on our agenda that we were going to vote on changing the bell schedules, I would like to make sure that we have notified our public that they feel they've had an opportunity to express their concerns before we actually take a vote. And that's really all I'm saying.
I
is
would
I
agree
think,
with Karn. Just more of a put them on notice. Hey, guess
you
what?
you can
This is
say,
what we're
I mean,
voting
if you want to have the principals put out, the board is leaning towards, doing this. I don't have a problem with saying that's what the board is probably planning to do, but they want to give notice. I don't think we really gave adequate notice to our public that this was what was a decision that was going to be made tonight. So that's why I would feel more comfortable voting on it at our next meeting, or having a special meeting and just voting on it at a special meeting.
Will 3 weeks make that big of a difference, honestly?
No, waiting till April 13th will be fine.
Because I'm not hearing any opposition to this.
Right.
So this is more just out of courtesy to our community. Okay. Okay, now back to the rest of the budget. Eric, Dr. Meyer.
We're on to the next is, what does it mean, the gifted restructuring? Are we going to lose a program? Are we going to increase class sizes? Where do we get the $150,000 there?
Mrs.
'Cause,
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
5 years
Governing
ago,
Board President Dr. Meyer. Again, another director that's done a phenomenal job, working very hard over the past months and brought together a proposal. Kim Lansdowne met with David and Jeff and I months ago and said, I get what's happening. I see what's happening with the budget. I know what's going to happen. The state had already eliminated the funds that we receive for gifted education, and in the way that They didn't pay us in December, and they're not going to pay us in January, February, March, April, May. Those funds have been taken. And so she worked very hard to look at what I would call some restructuring. And the majority of that restructuring, well, there's several places, and we can go through all of those. Did you want that kind of detail for the restructuring?
Well, when we get a call from a gifted parent
right.
tomorrow
I just wanted to make sure I was hearing your question correctly.
Which we will. What
Yes.
does this mean for my kid?
Yes. The majority of the restructuring is in the way that we deliver services. We're not eliminating any programs. We're not eliminating any total program services. But we're restructuring the way we deliver the services in middle school. The majority of that FTE savings comes from that additional elective, if you remember, in middle school that was provided for middle school students. And those teachers now will travel to school, two schools rather than be at one school. So less sections of that. Not eliminating it, but just less sections. Then the second would be that we had a teacher on assignment position that gave support to those teachers in schools, and that position is being eliminated. So that's where the majority of that is coming from.
So from a parent perspective, the programs will still exist in the form they're in. From their side, their child side, they won't see any change.
The change would be possibly in one school that I can think of, less sections that we might have to have a discussion about not having enough. At the most, it would be less sections. The other is restructuring at the elementary to do a true clustered delivery. And so we would maybe have less staffing at a couple of elementary schools for gifted positions. Again, not giving services, but giving services in a different way that combines some of that staffing. Also, Kim has been meeting with parents and staff. We'd be happy to continue to meet with any parents with questions.
Oh, does someone have a question on gifted? Okay. So but that's what I think she wants to go next. That's okay.
So now, well, I'm just going down the list.
Yeah, that's all right. Go down your laundry list.
The custodial changes on Tuesday and Thursdays. It's a big savings. Does that mean no custodians come on Tuesdays and Thursdays?
We will still, Madam President, Board Member Meyer, we will still have custodial service on Tuesdays and Thursdays for restrooms and kitchens because that's a health issue. But classrooms themselves, we will have to forego cleaning that space.
Okay, just keep going.
Then the reduction of department budget, is that just across the board?
Yes, as we met with all of the individual department supervisors and directors, they all gave savings for that 5, 10, and 15% scenario, and so we are taking those savings. So they're going to do without things. They're not going to be able to provide items that they've been able to provide to different programs in the future.
That's at the district office.
That's district office.
Not departments.
That is
meaning
not
school.
School departments.
Okay.
Pay per performance.
So that's a district office reduction.
Yes. Pay for performance. Currently, we do have a pay for performance plan for administrators and for classified, and those will be eliminated. So.
And is that the program we put in place with Meet and Confer 2 years ago?
That is correct.
That cut's being recommended because with the attempt through Meet and Confer with the SEA to keep base salaries for teachers even with what it is this year, that will require a restructuring of the SIP dollars. And so since teachers will be seeing a decrease in what's left over of the SIP money, the recommendation is that the same type of reduction, actually a complete elimination, should happen administratively and from the classified perspective.
You want to keep going? Oh.
Question? The special ed stuff seems it's explained on here. I don't know if other people had questions on the realignment of our special ed programs. The close the middle and elementary schools, so does that also correlate with the 11-month contract as well? And is that these savings are separate from that, or these utility savings?
These savings are separate from that.
And why did you choose just that month? I mean, if we went another week, how much would we save? Can you go, I mean, what's the latest we can open our schools, and what's the thought process behind that?
Well, again, our calendar is set for this next year, and parents and people have made plans based on that. And a lot of our staff have also made plans for the summer. So we felt that was a good opportunity based on schedules that we currently have looked at for what the community schools, the YMCA, the Parks and Recs, and those are going to be utilizing our facilities this summer. The 15th of June to the 30th of June is the current fiscal year, so we'll see some savings there. Those will not impact staff per se because the contract reductions will not take place till 1 July for the next fiscal year for those 11-month employees. But again, those 11-month employees, we are not looking to say you have to be off between the 15th of June and 15th of July. That's for those employees to schedule with their supervisors. So we may have an assistant principal that needs to work the majority of the summer because they have to get scheduling and those types of things done. They may choose to take off a week in October and a week in January and another one in February. That would be between them and their principal to make that decision.
Oh, Mr. Schaefer.
Along those lines, are we looking at some people or giving people the opportunity to come to work from home as opposed to going into the school? I mean, if that's in for the most part, that's very much practiced in the private sector, and I don't see any reason why we can't explore that opportunity.
We can explore that opportunity. We haven't had that discussion at this point.
Will they be coming into an unair-conditioned building between?
No, the discussion is that they would move to a building that is open, so the intent is to keep the 5 high schools open.
But do they even have to come to school?
Well, that's a conversation we can have, but again, our planning process at this time is they would come to one of the administrative buildings or to one of the high schools if they chose to work during that month time that their building was closed.
Because you have some curriculum work going on and other things like that sometimes.
Well, yeah,
they go on.
you know, obviously, you know, there's paychecks to write and so on and so forth, so we can't close this building down, and we thought to begin with for the first summer to make it fair for all employees, that those that maybe had vacation plans for the end of July and this forced vacation shutdown period would interfere with that. We don't want to infringe that opportunity, so they could still work, just work at a different venue. Now, a year from now, that might be completely different. Everybody's got a whole year to plan. This time period, we're going to be shut down. Don't, you know, schedule your vacations during this time period. But that's a discussion we have to have with all the employee groups. So although we want to capture the savings, we also want to be fair to everybody and make it possible that allows them to continue to work during the shutdown period. We can certainly pursue Mr. Schaefer's idea of working from home, but that's a conversation we can have.
And there are some coordination issues. The mail will not stop, so we're going to have to make plans with the post office to probably go once a week to pick up from for those various sites the mail and some of those types of things. So there's continuing other activities that we're talking about with our staff as to how we can operate a little differently but still continue to do the functions that we need to do.
Normally closed for a month in the summer, though, the elementary schools? How long are they closed in the summer?
Again, it depends on, Pam, it depends on the school. Some schools have extended school year for different programs. Some have Title I programs going on in those schools. So again, it depends on the actual school site.
What is the current SRO split, and does the city have to vote on this, or has this already been approved?
The current SRO split is 78-22, so we pay 78%. We think 50-50 is more of a appropriate alignment. We have talked with the chief. Melissa's been communicating with the chief, and this would not be something that the city would go vote on. It's something that they would put within the internal police department budget.
So let's go over the athletic fee. So the maximum is gone. So we had a maximum of what? And then raise this fee will take our fee from, because we have different middle and high school fees, right? So what will this mean to a parent who signs their kid up for a middle school sport or a high school sport?
The current cap is $400. It's $125 per sport, a $400 total cap. That will eliminate that cap. So if you have a three-sport athlete and 2 or 3 children in those sports, we will have to charge for all of them versus having a cap that would stop. Currently, it's $125 a sport. It will go to $150 a sport.
And what about at middle school? Will it? Because the middle school.
Middle school, we are not looking to change at this point. Right now, they have the schedule because of the intramural program. We would not be looking to change that. Now, if the 1 cent sales tax goes away, all we could do is eliminate that totally.
The last two, I don't know if people have questions on. So. So the high school and middle school counselors are going to be substitutes now. That their student load is already 450 or so kids, and I don't know, and kids can't get in to see them. I mean, if you have, so I guess is that how do we come to that decision?
Well, the first rationale for all of the subbing was that we thought it was a better idea to maintain the position and change the way we utilize the people, and that reutilization was first and foremost putting them in the classroom. The hope is with the counselors that actually this will put them in front of their kids through various programming that we have currently in place or could create, where they can spend time while they're subbing actually doing some work, as whether it's explaining the registration process, so on and so forth, to groups of kids. So but the bottom line is the easier alternative was simply to raise the ratio of kids that they service and eliminate positions, or eliminate the function of the assistant principal and reduce positions. And we thought it better that as long as we kept them in the building and made them do some subbing, it was a better use of personnel.
So just to be clear, so do the subs have to be, let's say you need a sub in a math class on Monday, would the then counselor all of a sudden become the math sub, and instead of teaching math, they would go in and talk about college preparedness, or would they go in and teach math? Or
no, you have to remember that we have control over the days when we want these people to be subbing. It won't be you show up to work today and, oh, by the way, you got to go sub today. We hope that not be the case. We hope that the principals working with their APs and with their counselors will determine what days would be best suited for subbing and for what maybe needs to happen within the class.
So meaning like when it's registration time, no counselors are subbing, or if they have to meet with seniors, no counselors are subbing.
Right, and we're not going to stick APs in classroom subbing during Ames testing because they're coordinating the testing. So it's not a matter of I don't know I have to sub until the day I get to work. Hopefully it'll be a planned out calendar of when this happens. Now I won't say that there's not going to be a day that we need to require a person to sub through and through this process. But if you looked at all the administrative subbing this year that's going on, all that was planned. It was planned ahead of time based on activities, based on calendar, based on the appropriate use of time for that particular administrator to get into the classroom and sub.
And the only other thing I would add is that these are people who know our kids. These are our outstanding, incredible, wonderful employees. And they know our kids, and not in any way to belittle our substitutes who work very hard and we need them dearly, but these are people who work every day in those buildings with kids. So the quality of substitution, whereby a teacher would still leave a lesson plan for a sub, could increase tremendously in some cases as far as knowing the kids already, that they don't come to that building less often, they're there all of the time. So as far as meeting the needs of kids as a substitute in the room, we from the teaching and learning team see this as a good way to reduce costs, to reduce sub-costs, and to put qualified educators with students on an ongoing basis.
So now we're on to the elementary school librarians with the classified, to change that through attrition. And I seem to remember 5 or 6 years ago when we did this, and we had the problem with some of the principals use the librarian as their specials class and some other issues. Have those?
We've had those very large discussions. In the elementary schools, we do know that librarians as teacher librarians also teach, as well as all of our librarians teach, and in some cases they teach so that a teacher can have a planning period. And those teacher librarians are very valued to us, and we realize that. One of the reasons to do this by attrition is it would give us time next year, because there would be not very many people. I don't even know if there are any librarians retiring. I don't happen to know that information. But as it happens slowly, we would be able to try this out for a year, look to see what this would look like, modify and adjust and support those elementary principals to look at other ways to do those planning periods and that type of teaching, and work toward that. Again, this is not a pleasant topic at all. Our teacher librarians have been extraordinary. Our leadership of teacher librarians is extraordinary. They are integral. And having said that, this is one of the things that's happening to us because of what's happening with the state funding, and would be devastating to us, we understand.
I just have a question with that. Katie, why not the high school or middle school librarians? Why was the choice made for the elementary? It's just elementary school?
Well, there is a reduction in librarians for next year of the high school,
right.
of the high school.
Right, for a 0.5. But on here, what I'm talking about is replace the elementary school librarian with a classified. Not at middle and not at high?
That is the discussion currently on the table.
Basically driven by size of school.
Okay. I mean, the only reason I ask, these are all bad decisions. There's no good choice. But in elementary, that's when kids are getting the bug to read. I mean, you almost hate to... There's something very exciting about going to the library. I don't know.
I guess my question would be, how are we going to use the libraries without having someone there who is planning programming for it? You know, what's going to happen? Does that mean that the teacher in the classroom now has the responsibility for teaching the research skills and things like that that are typically being done by our teacher librarians? So we've added, again, one more task to our elementary school teachers.
I'm sorry to say I don't have an answer to that other than anyone who's given up positions on this piece of paper, that's the case, that someone else will look at that.
Whatever we're doing, we're losing something.
And it's not a good
What
loss.
is the classified person doing? Just babysitting the books?
Actually, would not be I wouldn't use the term babysitting, because that particularly is one that I have a difficult time with, since our legislators don't think of our kindergartens half-time and full-time, and we're using that word. So I would not use that word. However, the word I would use is we would be functionally doing checking out of books and materials and helping kids find research materials and working that way. It would not be the teacher librarian role that we have so much enjoyed.
That's the functionality of it.
Functionality.
So they'd be maintaining it so there's a space for people to come in and use the facilities, but they're not going to be teaching a whole lot of, depending on, whether or not you get a classified employee who happens to also have a bachelor's degree in library science, who now is willing to work for a classified wage. But I've been in a school where they just had a classified employee in the library, and it was not the same type of program that you can provide when you have that certified staff in there.
Absolutely not. And one of the reasons that I've heard Dr. Catalani and Dr. Peterson talk about that is that one of the reasons you do things by attrition is that gives you a year to see where are the problems and would we be able to bring this one back first if the money is better next year.
And the same issue applies if you're eliminating the halftime at the high schools. you're basically closing down the libraries for lunch or other things at the high schools and middle schools.
The high schools have a 1.0 and then this additional 0.5. So I think it would be more of a modification of schedules more than closing down everything. But I agree there will be less service.
Well, I mean, if you have one person working there, they have to go to the bathroom. They have to be able to, get lunch at a minimum. So you're going to have to close the library at times for them to be able to take care of those functions. And you're not going to have it open before school or after school because you don't have it staffed before school and after school. So we're in the information age. We're making a cut to our source of information.
Right.
We're on to the nurses with health aides. So how did we choose health aides rather than, we had this discussion 7 years ago, I remember.
EMTs.
With EMTs rather than, and I don't know, A, what are the qualifications of a health aide? And B, there are other health professionals like EMTs that may, I remember at that time we talked about, and this was 7 years ago, would have been $350,000 in savings through attrition if we replaced our nurses with EMTs. So, and
yeah, we are certainly, if and when we, through attrition, need to do that, we would certainly attempt to find an EMT that would be willing to work for the designated salary range. That would be our desire. The other thing that we have made clear to the parent groups that we've talked to thus far is if, let's say, a nurse resigns from elementary school A, that doesn't mean elementary school A will be the school that ends up without the nurse. The school that will end up without the nurse, at least full-time nurse, will be the school that has the least direct need for that health professional. So if a school that has a lot of students with health issues, that school would be the one guaranteed the nurse before somebody else. So we'll look at student need as we move nurses around. And if we have a one nurse vacancy, it could be a part-time sharing between schools of one nurse with a health aide or EMT part-time at the same two schools to fulfill the day. I mean, again, as Mrs. Kavanaugh said, this gives us the opportunity to slowly transition into this to find out if it works. And if it works, great. If it's a bad idea, then to go back to where we are today is not as difficult as if we carte blanche removed the programs and then said, what a terrible idea, because then you really have a mess. So we think the slow moving into it and learning from it, and again, every now and then you make a change, you do find some good things in it. So we would hope that would be also part of it, but we think it's a safer approach, and it's also much fairer to our current employees that no one is jeopardized of a position under this plan.
I just have to ask I'm sorry, go ahead,
Yeah, go
Dieter.
ahead.
I just want to say that I marked this one as well, and I do have a concern replacing nurses with health aides. But I understand what we have to do. But from a safety perspective, from a health perspective, I think we need to be really careful and evaluate that very closely as to how well that is working.
Yeah, the other thing we're going to do is obviously we're going to interface with the school districts that currently follow this practice, understand what they do, what their problems have been, and just like everything else that we do, work will be translated to other sources. In a prior district, we had health aides, and I can tell you elementary school principals spend a heck of a lot of time of their day dealing with issues that nurses used to deal with.
I have to ask, why elementary schools again? I mean, because it worries me to not have that medical presence on an elementary campus, just kids playing on playgrounds, banging their head, inhalers, you know, all their little stuff. Why did we choose elementary schools again in this mix? Katie, anybody? Or,
I'd be happy to try to respond. No, none of these are good decisions.
absolutely, and no choice, right, no level
And
is
quite
good.
honestly, I think when we discussed this at length, it was discussed that it would be trying to retain a health professional, an RN, per complex, and then look at the restructuring. So, for example, if you had a complex that the largest number of special needs students in programs was at the elementary school, it might make sense that the elementary that the RN be there rather than at the high school. The facility is a part of it, and we were looking at a hub of a place where an RN could consult with aides, with health aides in a complex situation. So maybe that's something you would like us to take a look at, is why is it listed as elementary? Could we look at it by complex, for example, or by some structure, and where could you have an RN in proximity close by and look at structuring fewer RNs and sets of aides? That is a part of the discussion that we had.
I mean, I think maybe that's slightly more palatable.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions? Dieter?
Just one more comment, and that is, have you guys considered teaming up with maybe Banner Health Care System and getting some volunteer nurses to volunteer
Actually,
their time for...
Yes. Scottsdale Healthcare, quite honestly, has been a part of our conversation. We have a huge partnership with Scottsdale Healthcare, and they work with other school districts to provide services with the restructuring, if you will, of not having an RN at every site. So we will work closely with them, and we'll work on that and give you some more information.
And Madam President, Board Member Dieter, Schaefer, we also had that with our athletic trainers. And because of financial reasons, and they're seeing a financial crunch also, we had to change that model. And we had to go to a different model for athletic trainers, away from Banner Healthcare, because Scottsdale Healthcare, because they weren't able to help support and provide the support that they were before. So we're having those discussions constantly with them, but they are having some financial issues also.
Have we done any sort of statistical analysis to see how our nurses are being, you know, what kinds of things they're dealing with on a daily basis or a monthly basis in our schools, so that we have some idea of what the impact is going to be?
Dr. Sakos works with those nurses, and we do have those injury reports and playground reports and so forth. We'll work to get you a compilation of that information as well.
Yeah, it's not that I need to have all the information. I just, you know, I'd like to just feel comfortable that we're making this decision knowing, I mean, I've, you know, toured most of all the campuses at some point, and, you know, we have some students with very high medical needs.
Absolutely.
That, you know, when I went to school, those students wouldn't be allowed on campus because their medical needs were just too extreme. So, you know, what made us nervous 7 years ago when this came up was, you know, what's our liability and what's the risk, you know, that we're going to have associated with not being able to have on the campus or the quick access. So that's where I'm coming from, is that I just want to make sure that, if, you know, we do some analysis, and that may help us decide, you know, where we have the most need for these services on which campuses, based on some historical data and also on the populations that are on those campuses.
Absolutely.
It could also include geographically. I mean, let's just say, for argument's sake, a school like Copper Ridge that's way out, well, nobody's getting there anytime quickly. Maybe they do have a DERS, whatever. I mean, I think there's a lot of variables involved.
Okay.
And I'm going to get a little off topic, but this is back to Dieter's point. I mean, at the same time we cut education funding, we cut kids care. You know, 42,000 kids in the state who used to receive their health care somewhere are now going to be going to our nurse's office or an ER. Kids that we cut multiple people, including kids off their mental health plan. We've cut CRS funding. I mean, the demographics of patient care in our state is going to change dramatically. I mean, we just threw 400,000 people off their health care. and we're losing all the federal matching funding that went with it. So it's going to be interesting to see how that. I mean, and we lost our social workers, and there are no services anywhere for any of these people other than the ER in our schools. So it's going to be another challenge, and so it, doesn't make our decisions any easier. It just, is unfortunate.
The interesting statistic is I think there were 1.3 million individuals on access, and we only have just over 1 million students in K-12 education. So we have more people on access than we have kindergarten through 12th grade students in public education. So, we're starting with a huge population. I know that especially in our Title IX schools, the nurse is the health care for those students and sometimes for those families. So that's why I get a little nervous about some of, what impact does that have on their ability to learn.
One other pitch I want to throw in for elementary school nurses. There's not a lot of help on an elementary school campus. The nurse is the counselor, the psychologist. They're doing a lot more, in all fairness, than just nurse duties. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, Dr. Meyer, anything else from?
I'll just go, just on this one, I mean, I worked with EMTs for years. I got beat up when I recommended this 7 years ago. And, when a kid has a problem, you dial 911 and the EMT is the person that shows up. So, if we can find a qualified person with attrition, I mean, again, we don't want to make these choices, but everything's a trade-off, and how do we keep our schools functioning? So it's not like I'm not willing to examine the issue.
Oh, sorry.
But no, I'm just going to keep going if we're done with nurses and EMTs, unless anyone, someone else can take over. I don't have any. The class size adjustments, 112 FTEs, what's the plan with notification and making those decisions? I know we're working with the SEA to do this in a way that's best for our teachers. But
Madam President, Board Member Meyer, first of all, we have committed, along with our Teachers Association, to have contracts issued the middle of April. Those contracts will be issued to all of the individuals that we know with certainty will have jobs next year. The ones that we will not be issuing contracts to are the ones that have the potential of not being employed next year due to what we know currently as our budget and what could happen based on the 1-cent sales tax not passing. Because we can't give contracts to those individuals, take the risk, the sales tax doesn't pass, and then we have to go back and try to undo contracts. That's not going to work. We would have to then do across the board pay cut. So we're being very cautious that way. After the election on May 18th, our intent is on May 19th to be able to send out notices depending on how the election we hope is favorable, and we can reduce those. But we are looking at all those numbers now. We are working with the Teachers Association and looking at them for who will be on the various lists for unassigned and those types of things, and moving forward. And we've had a lot of teachers call Human Capital asking about seniority and those types of things. So we are trying to communicate as best we can. Again, to honor the board, I have not shared this presentation across the district at this point. Tomorrow morning it will be on the website, and we will be having a lot more discussion, I can imagine, within the district. But we felt it was important to get it to the board and have some initial discussion with the board, and then allow our district staff to be able to see this. So a lot of people I know saw this tonight and are probably going, holy mackerel. We've been doing that for months, but I've purposely not shared it with our staff because I wanted to honor the process and give it to the board. So there will be some eye-opening and some oh my goshes tomorrow, and that's to be expected, and it's unfortunate.
I think that's everything.
First of all, David, I wanted to thank you for including so many of the stakeholders in this budget process. I want people to understand this isn't something that any of us or you just sat down and started slashing away. One of the questions that I had, and some of these questions I asked you before, but I just want to make sure that we share this with the rest of the board. With the classroom sizes going up, how will this affect the high school classroom caps? In other words, will there be some high school offerings that won't make because because we have to increase the number in order to have a class make?
That could be a possibility. First and foremost, we do staffing in the high schools as an average. So the principals get those numbers, and they have some flexibility to staff their classes based on one student requests and some core classes that we need to provide for students based on our core plan. So they have to look at averages. If we have band or a music class that maybe, or a PE class that has, 50, 60 students in it, that helps with some other classes that would have maybe a few less in it. We're looking at probably somewhere between 18 to 22 students for a class to truly make. That's probably the number for a specialty type class. But we're also looking to roll out distance learning, so that we are hopeful that we may have some of our classes that may make, but it may make based on 3 high schools or 2 high schools coming together. So we're looking at truly implementing distance learning in our schools, so that we may have a specialty calculus class at a high school, and maybe we have 4 kids at this high school and maybe 10 kids at this high school that need to take it. They all can take it together at the same time, but they'll be online with this class and this teacher in this program. So we're looking at that flexibility and those options also to make sure that we can meet the needs of our students out there. There may be a class that if it only has 6 students in it, we may have to say, we're sorry, we can't make that class.
Here, as far as if the 1 cent sales tax does not pass, and we talk about eliminating all elementary specials, right now I know that offers our elementary school teachers a planning period where they can do some of their administrative tasks, and they can do their lesson plans so that if a sub comes in, everything is ready to go. We're not talking about having classified people supervise them during this period and still offering the planning period to the elementary teachers, right?
Not at all. The planning periods would be reduced. It's
reduced or eliminated? I'm trying to figure out.
Probably the majority of them would be eliminated. We would try to work something out, but at this point, another additional $11.4 million is a huge hill to climb, and we would have to try to do that. And so those programs would be eliminated. Those students would lose those services. It would be typical to what we have in some of our other schools across the state that don't have some of the luxuries of having some of those additional specials that we're able to have in Scottsdale.
However, the state still has standards in art and music. So will our elementary teachers, classroom teachers, be required to teach those standards as well as everything else that they have to
They would have to incorporate that into their overall classroom instruction.
And in library sciences also?
We would have to figure a way out to provide that.
Well, I just wanted to clarify what I wanted to get an idea of what our teachers' days are going to look like, because when you have up to 34 fourth grade kids and all day long, and plus our teachers are going to have to learn new standards and make lesson plans that they haven't had to before, because we've always been able to afford certified teachers in these special areas that have special certification in their areas. It's going to look very different, very different.
Schaefer.
Most of my questions have been answered. A couple of things I'd like to point out. Number one, I would like to thank you. This is an excellent presentation, and you and your staff have done a tremendous job putting this document together. So thank you, David. The other thing is also, amidst all the gloom and doom, I think that there are 2 organizations that are doing a really fine job, and that is the community schools and nutritional services that are contributing to our budget. And I think we need to recognize that And I think we also need to make sure that we explore that in the future more intensely and see what other opportunities we can open up in nutritional services as well as in community schools to for us to get some more funding, because obviously $1.2 million is something that is significant and substantial. So I want to thank nutritional services and community schools for doing an outstanding job in that area. And other than that, all I have to say is that it's a sad state of affairs here, and I just hope that you will contact your representative and make sure that they understand what it means for them not to support a sales tax increase, because it'll be a devastating it will be devastating for our school to lose an additional $11 million. And there are some legislators out there, specifically Mr. Kavanaugh, who has not yet understood that, there is an implication here. So, I would personally appreciate if people would pick up the phone, send him an email, and make him understand what is at stake here. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ms. Beckvar.
The one piece of information you didn't include on if the 1 cent sales tax doesn't pass is what is the FTE loss for our classified staff and for our certified staff. Do we know roughly what we're talking about?
Again, we'll have to calculate that, because as you can see, when we were raising 3 students, our initial savings was about $5.2 million. When you do it the second time, it's significantly less because you are putting more in there and you're not saving as much. So we will calculate that and we will put that out on the fact sheets.
Okay, because I think that sometimes it's easier for people to just sort of see. I mean, and the other thing I think we ought to put out on our fact sheet is take a classroom and put 34 kids in that class and take a picture and show what our classrooms are going to look like with 34 students in it. And what we have, versus what we currently have today. I mean, so people can see that this is going to look different, and especially in our older schools where our rooms are quite a bit smaller, you're going to have trouble even getting that many desks in that room probably. Or you're going to take out the computers or the work tables or some other types of things in there.
Just a quick question on the class averages, just so we're clear on how those calculated. When you talk about a class average for a high school, that includes special ed classes on that campus as well. So you have special ed classes of, I don't know what the high school, no? Okay. I just need, okay, so when we're talking the 34 average, that's
there'll be 40
regular classrooms.
There'll be 40 in some classes, and you'll have, in order to have those,
I don't know.
or 45 maybe even in some classes, in order to have the 25 on, an AP class or on
again, band, if you have a large orchestra or a chorus, PE classes, they all help contribute to take a few more students to help lighten the load in some other areas.
And they can balance having the small jazz band by having the bigger orchestra class or something along that line.
Right. Unlike the elementary schools, the high school class size of average of 34 for the first best case scenario, that impact on classroom delivery and programming is no different than if the class size was set at 28. It's you're given staffing, we give it to the principals, they decide how to use their staffing. We don't tell them how to use their staffing. So they work with their departments and they make decisions and compromises based on which classes they want to go and which classes they can't support, which classes they're going to exceed the average to support a lower class. And I've been asking the principals, the high school principals, to send me the courses, especially the honors and AP courses that are being sacrificed by this. The good news is there's very few thus far on the list. And everyone that's on the list I've sent to Mrs. Kavanaugh and the distance learning group saying this should be the conversation of classes that we start looking at to first provide access to kids through distance learning opportunities. And so where last year an AP course or an honors course may have been slashed, this year for everybody to take it, it might just simply mean 5 high schools get together and make sure their schedule for that class looks the same, high school by high school by high school, period by period by period. We may have more opportunities for kids even with this larger average than we had this year, simply by adding distance learning capability, which fortunately for our district we can fund through our capital override. So,
the
that's
technology
the good
in
news.
order to support it.
Right.
We can't support the people for that through our capital override, but
We can buy the technology
buy
through
the technology to be able to do that.
Yes.
So you're still going to have a teacher somewhere supervising them, and if you're doing it out of your library, or you're going to have someone supervising the students, they can't just be in a
Well,
classroom
we need a
without-
teacher somewhere in the mix,
Right.
obviously.
Well, to teach, but you also need
But
supervision
I'm
for
not
the
sure you
student.
need a teacher to supervise the kids in the classroom.
Well, I mean, no, you don't need a teacher, but you need an individual.
Right.
You need
Right.
staffing
Right.
to supervise.
And the reality with all of these cuts is that we are going to have to function differently next year. We're going to have to be creative. We're going to have to think outside the box. There's conversation right now of looking at defining the professional day differently, both before school and after school. And I think teachers and principals are going to have to become flexible even within defining what that looks like. So let's say the professional day is 15 minutes before and 30 minutes after, but a teacher would really rather spend their 30 minutes during the middle of the day rather than at the end of the day. I think we have to say, okay, we can support that if this is what everybody wants, if it really makes something work within a building. I think you're going to see, again, a much different approach to use of time and use of resources. And Mrs. Sneed was accurate. If we get to that, the 1 penny sales tax doesn't happen, the definition of Scottsdale Unified School District will be completely different than it is today. It will not be the same school district. You can't take $22 million out of a $150 million operation and expect that you're going to look anywhere close to the type of organization you looked at with that money. And, the sad part of that part of the conversation is this could already have been decided. Through legislative will, they could have put the 1 penny sales tax in place without going to the public.
Or done some other combination.
Whatever they wanted to do. But there was, we elect leaders to make decisions.
And they're not making
Our
decisions.
leaders said, people, you make the decision. In my mind, they're not leaders by making that statement.
I just wanted to, when we get to this point, after we've already had 2 years of cuts, and heavily the cuts were in the administrative areas, I just want people to understand that outside of the classroom, we still have to run the buildings, we still have to provide food service to the students, there's student support services, there's teacher support services, transportation, and so it's very easy to say just cut administration. The problem is the administrative tasks have to be done. And if we have the teachers doing the administrative tasks, that's still time away from instruction. And I would venture to guess that most of the people that get into teaching do it because they love the kids and because that's what their passion is. Most of them certainly don't get rich doing so. To add administrative burden on top of that and to take away more instructional time from the students, I really think we've just been squeezed to the point where it's really not going to, our day is not going to look the same. Our Scottsdale just won't be the same when we get done.
I just have a couple of remarks. I know we received a tremendous amount of community input. Were there any And did anything come from the community input that was valuable to you that you could use? I'm sure it was all valuable, but anything?
There were changes from the community input. Some of it had to do with looking at, the various staff times. Some of it had to do with, the input of shutting down for the month during the summer, to save some dollars on the energy side of it, to continue looking at trying to save energy and do performance contracting and solar that we're doing. I had a lot of those types of inputs. Across the board, it was just not pleasant. And some of the community, it was also an educational issue to let them know that some dollars are restricted because they said, well, gosh, we have the capital override, just use it to pay for things. And you can't because they can't be paid for salaries. So it was a good suggestion. Unfortunately, the law doesn't allow us to do that.
Is there some way to highlight that a lot of community input was utilized? Because I know often we ask the community for their input, but I believe there's a feeling from the community that, stop asking, you never use our advice. I mean, is there some way to highlight this? Because it sounds like it was quite a bit of community.
Madam President, I'll go back through all of the changes and the inputs and things and kind of add that so we can add it to the data that's going to be going out so that people can see that we have listened. Why are we doing this? Because we heard you. And so I will make sure that I will
think
put that
it's
in
important in all of this.
Yes.
And then, I mean, as far as the 1% sale, I don't even want to talk about it failing, to be honest with you, because these cuts are, in elementary alone, we may as well go out of the elementary school business. PE, forget about it. Just put Twinkies back in there because the kids are going to be obese. They're not going to have PE. If we eliminate music at elementary, we've eliminated it throughout our school system then. And then the pay for performance, that scares me for these high school kids that are reliant upon scholarships, athletic scholarships, to just go to college. Or, I mean, even for some kids, just to keep them off the street. So this is very scary. I mean, this will be all on the website if the 1% does not
Yes.
pass. I mean, really highlighted exactly what all this means.
We've also given you a flyer
Right, we have the
that
fact
we're
sheet.
working with our PTOs and PTAs to distribute
Right.
that not only shows the factual information of the 1 cent sales tax recommendation or ballot initiative, but the impact it will have on Scottsdale Unified if it fails.
I mean, this is very
So that
scary.
this will be distributed widely, and it will be on our website if it's not already. It's already on the website.
It's already on the website. Thank you. Perfect. I mean, only just, to make sure people, I don't like scare tactics, but this is scary.
Just
This
so
is
that you
very
know, since we have to remember, this is a statewide
Right.
Oh,
ballot.
absolutely.
It's
I
not
know.
just Scottsdale. So I made sure that I shared with all of the superintendents that are part of NEVIC yesterday our flyer on the factual information for the penny sales tax initiative and encourage them to contact Carla because we're willing to share our template so that they all can use it. Again, it's factual. We're not telling anybody how to vote,
It's an excellent template,
but
by the
we're
way.
letting people know what the facts are.
And ASBA has also seen it and is looking at getting some information out to all districts.
Great job. One last thing, and I certainly don't want to cut any more. I really am very worried, though, about the $73,000 contingency. I mean, you're right. If we stub our toe, I mean, we have no wiggle room whatsoever. What can we do about this? I don't.
Madam President, board members, the one area we may be able to get some relief, and we're working the numbers right now, is the state just posted the Teacher Experience Index. And so it looks like our Teacher Experience Index, we've worked it out with them, is going to be up a little bit. In the calculation, I kept the same TEI number. So if it's up just a little bit, we may have an extra $200,000. I won't know that until we finish all the calculations, but that's going to be about it. So the TEI is our hope to have a little bit of flexibility.
Living from paycheck to paycheck, aren't we?
Yes.
We're not even getting a paycheck. You're right. We are laid off. Okay. Okay, so we're going to bring back the two bell thing at our next meeting. Anything else? Anybody?
Make one final comment and I'll be quiet, which I say that all the time and I keep on talking, but, okay, I appreciate it. I mean, just as Dr. Peterson and Dr. Catalani have pointed out, we've been painted into this corner by our legislative leaders. There were other choices that we could have made well over a year ago that would have, if we had the will as a legislature to do the right thing for our kids, we wouldn't be having some of these discussions that we're having today. And I can go on and on about all the other choices, and people say we have no choices. Well, we do. There's plenty of them, and we failed as a legislative body to make those choices. So now our only choice is this 1 cent sales tax, and just like everyone's pointed out, it'll be terrible if it for our district and districts across the state if it doesn't pass. But there were lots of choices, and we as a legislative body failed to make any of those potentially tougher decisions in my mind. So thank you.
Okay. All right, anything more on this? Okay. Any future action? Beckvar.
I just had a question. There were a couple of things that we had originally scheduled for March in terms of the program review, and when are we getting those scheduled?
I know a couple of them.
I'm just going to put it out there as, just get back to the board on when they've been rescheduled.
That's great. That's great.
Okay, any governing board reports? What do you? Jude Webb.
Are we talking about a bond at some point, and when's that on the?
Fun.
So we can only make a suggestion. So.
Yes, Madam President, I would hope this next month, as we look at a schedule for a board meeting, that we would bring forth a presentation for some preliminary discussions. Any bond would have to be called for by June, so we would need to have that out there.
Sandra, would you mind sending out the updated, here's what's coming up on the agenda thing? Okay. Okay, Mr. Schaefer.
Yep. I just want to tell you that on the bright side of things, I was at Desert Mountain High School today. They had an international IB festival displaying various countries and, the cultural aspects of various countries. The students put it on themselves and did a fine job, an outstanding job, so I really enjoyed being there. The IB program is a magnificent cornerstone in our educational system here at Scottsdale. So I just really want to thank Sandy Landberg and the students and Mr. Milbrand for putting this on. I enjoyed myself tremendously, so thank you.
Ms. Beckvar.
And I just wanted to thank Mr. McKenzie for the great sports banquet last night. It's fun to listen to the passion that the coaches have for their scholar athletes. Even though it's a long program that we always joke about. And I also I did manage to attend a couple of the 50th anniversaries at, it was at Hohokam and
Pima.
And Pima.
Yep, I was there with you. Yep.
So they did a great job.
Yeah, they did do a great job. Hohokam had their first principal was there, which is interesting. Okay. Enough of that. Any other governing board reports? All right. The dates of upcoming meetings, Tuesday, April 13th at 5:30 p.m. We have a regular board meeting, also a work study. And then Tuesday, May 4th at 5:30, we have a regular board meeting. Anybody want a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are now adjourned.